A very good morning to you. Welcome to the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television. I'm Jeffrey. It's a brand new day, a brand new week. How are you doing? Good morning.
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Lagos. Good morning, Nigeria. And of course, to our viewers around the world. July 6, 2026. The month is running really fast. And the year as well. And for many Nigerians, I don't want to get religious with you, but you know, I've heard a lot of pastors said, I know what this second part of 2026 will be better than the first. But thank you indeed for joining us here in Lagos. It's a wet Monday morning. I'm not sure exactly where you are watching us from here in Lagos, but it's wet around where we are this morning. And it's been raining. We hear it's going to rain even more this year, Jeff.
Well, rain is nothing new to us, but those of us who live in Lagos, we know that this is the reality you have to face. We had the Honorable Commissioner for Environment, Mr. Wahab Tokumbo was here last week to explain some of the challenges that Lagos is facing. And one of the things he said to us is that there may never be a day where we will not have these incidents, because we're asking questions about, could there be a time when this will be resolved even better? But he said, to be very realistic, you know, what is happening along the coastal lines of West Africa is common to these countries. What can be done is to manage it a lot better. Whether Lagos state government is managing it well or not, that's a debate that the people will have with them. But those of you who live in, especially on the island, and it's not a great time, because every time it rains now, all of the luxury feelings that those was allergies on the island just disappears, because I've seen homes flooded and people literally complaining. We're happy. I don't think there's been any reported loss of lives. I stand to be corrected, but to that extent, we're grateful. But something has to be done in the management of our waters. I think we may have the Commissioner for Waterfront Development later on in the week to also explain to us their own part of the narrative. So if you live on the island, and some parts of the mainland, you may be prone to these things, but we expect government to do a lot more when it comes to the management of natural, maybe you can call this natural disaster, but not like the earthquakes and typhoons and the tornadoes of this world. But this is our own reality. We deal with flood, we deal with erosion. Those are the most common things we do deal with. But what else are we tracking? The big conversation, Kelly, has to do with the spending of government. I don't want to go neck deep into it. Some things are a bit technical, so I don't want to drive that direction. However, we're going to have that conversation extensively. But for those of you who missed it, the IMF had released a document some time ago, and people still go back to those documents to reference, you know, the spending of government. So in Nigeria, the debate is to where do we have a problem. In some parts, we agree that we have a problem. So government will generate revenue, government will spend the revenue, you know, and then sometimes there are deficits in this revenue. So Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, the presidential candidate of the ADC, had done an article highlighting some of the things he saw. I think that should be page 5, Kelly, to page 5 of that particular document that talked about statistical discrepancy and referencing the size of those discrepancies to the size of our GDP, which came to about 8.8 trillion. And it says shadow budgeting, off the record spending, and even talked about illegal deduction from subnationals in terms of their FAC allocation, all of this marshalling up for the 2027 election. So it was talking between data with economics, or referencing data from economics to the political inference. Well, the federal government has actually responded through the Honorable Minister of Finance to say, no, that is not exactly what it is. So whatever discrepancies were, as at the time this report was released, some of those things were corrected with the repeal and reenactment of some of the components of previous budgets, like the 2025 capital component, which the president has promised that by March, we're not supposed to be having overlaps, but I think it was extended yet again. So that's what I'm trying to say. I don't want to go too technical. So the debate now is, are these monies missing, or are these money unaccounted for, or are these monies in places we can't trace, or are these monies spent extra budgetary through extra budgetary means, or these are just first-line charges or statutory transfers. So you need to understand the technicalities of how monies are managed as long as public fiscal policies are concerned. So we'll leave that to the person who understands, the expert. But I understand it, but I don't want to go too deep into it, so that I'm not doing the expert's work.
Yeah, we'll get to unpack that on the show this morning. When I saw that article, I mean, you shared it with me, but the backlash on social media, I like the fact that it looks like Nigerians are really interested in what is going on with their spendings, their economy. And it's important we pay attention to these things beyond the numbers and all of that. So I saw the backlash, I saw the minister's response. In fact, his media aide, Mary-Ann Jukukon, a colleague of ours as well, who is now on the other side of things, posting that article there, or the statements from the Minister of Finance, Taiwo Oyedele, trying to defend and asking the question, perhaps, is there evidence enough to substantiate these allegations or accusations? And I'm saying to myself, it's interesting how the government sometimes like to do selective, I don't know if I call it selective judgment. When the IMF praises your reforms, it's a good thing. In fact, you're happy with the World Bank when they praise the economic reforms and your policies, you hail them. But when they criticize or make these kind of assessments, because that's what that article is, an assessment of some directors from the IMF, then it becomes a problem. And then you see the minister, trying to defend the government's end and all of that. So, but I think it's a big question mark for this administration, facing these huge allegations of concerning our budgeting, and saying, look, there's some sort of spending or concealment somewhere. We don't know what exactly it is. We're going to ask through some of those questions to the experts on the show this morning. But it beats my imagination that I'm not sure what out-of-school children or Marjorie's 1.5 billion naira allegedly, I'm not sure the connection between that and building a road in Ogun State. That is what we're seeing in the body in that finding. So we're going to throw all of this to the experts this morning. On the issue of flooding, it's a Lagos thing, but even in parts of Ogun State as well. I'm glad that on the show this morning we're going to speak to the Commissioner for Environment as well. In places like Wawa, the Long Bridge, this is the time where every year some people have to relocate, and I imagine that has already started now, because I've had to do 1 or 2 reports on that axis along communities along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, where along this period, Isheri, Opik, it's flooded. And I'm wondering, don't we have a solution to this problem? Can't we fix this? There are houses in Wawa, for instance, that have been submerged, taken over by a flood for many years now. In fact, those people had to abandon their houses as a result of flood. Some have gotten used to it, so when it gets to this period, they have developed some sort of coping mechanism. So it's a big question indeed for the Ogun State government as well as the Lagos State government. But while it was flooding here in Lagos and Ogun State as well, it was also flooding in Ghana, it was flooding in India, so it's not a Nigerian thing per se, but I think we have to find a way to find some sort of solutions to all of these challenges.
Yeah, fabulous. As a matter of fact, as we were just talking, that is the reason some of these issues that has been raised by Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, whether it's right or wrong, or understanding of data and government spending, that's a different kettle of fish. I'm just happy that someone is on the toes of government, which is why we always advocate for the survival of the opposition. When the APC was in opposition, they were super vibrant. I think they still remain one of the biggest model of what opposition should look like. You can look at the excesses of their time. That's a different matter. But you cannot deny that they were vibrant. So when we see the opposition dying, whether by orchestration of government or orchestration, self-imposed orchestrated death by the opposition themselves, or a hybrid of both, we're not happy. We want vibrant opposition so that you sneeze, they have something to say. You cough, they have something to say. You laugh, they have something to say. Not ridiculous things, no. I mean, things like this, where they'll say, Tell us where this money went to. You can answer, oh, you misunderstood, or this is actually what happened. Tell us when this happened. We will continue to make a case for the survival of opposition. One day, this same APC will go to the opposition. We'll continue to make that. Yes, it's true.
I'm not sure. Some members of the APC will be happy to hear that.
It doesn't matter whether it doesn't matter whether they are happy. It's inconsequential to me.
Yeah, it's going to happen. I mean,
what happens, you can't be in power forever.
Absolutely.
So when some of us who are journalists and civil society organizations, we're making a case for the collective good, because things will continue to flip.
Yeah.
Yeah. At some point, people will get tired and want another leadership. We don't know when that will be.
Yeah.
And when they get tired of that particular leadership, they'll bring another set of leadership. So it's going to be back and forth, maybe between two major parties, or with Nigeria's case, I do not know. So this is why we always say opposition must thrive, so that they will be one of the first line of action in terms of holding government to account. So for those of you who care to know, in terms of just for public information, when it comes to holding the executive to power, the first set of people that will do that is the National Assembly. So when the executive is doing certain excesses and nothing is happening, it's a failure of the National Assembly, the People's House. The next one, is the opposition itself, through that National Assembly. Then you have CSO. The media comes in like maybe the fourth line of almost like the last line. So we're together ensuring that your common wealth is properly spent and properly managed. But let's not forget, Kelly, as I was driving down, we're talking about these monies, whether they are illegally spent or extra budgetary spent. I just remember that those kids and those teachers are still in Orire.
Yeah.
They've not come out. So please, government.
More than one
I'm sure government is doing something. I keep saying that because there's no way government will just sit idly by. Please, do something and let's get these kids out as soon as possible.
Jeff, I mean, the other major concern for me over the weekend is that two Nigerians, again in South Africa, lost their lives. And I saw the Nigerian government again trying to put out a statement there to condemn those killings. It's a big concern. I'm not sure how else we are able to tackle this. But beyond the statements, beyond the rhetorics, the Nigerian government, I think you have to do better. But just when I thought that, we have a national disease of forgetfulness, I also think that South Africa and the continents also, we have that disease as well on the continent. We forget, SA, you forget your history, you forget the fact that Nigeria played a very, very prominent role in regaining your freedom or getting your freedom. You forget the history books, you forget the fact that Nigeria had to nationalize the British petroleum as at the time in protest of what was going on in SA. You forget all of that. I'm just really concerned that we've had to do this over and over again, and Nigerians have had to lose their lives. Families perhaps left fatherless, left brotherless, and all of that. We have to do something about it, and I want to think that the Nigerian government also has to sit up. When US President President Cyril Ramaphosa some months back, we had to rally around SA because we didn't like. It was more like if something's happened to one, it's happened to all of us. But we've seen things happen to Nigerians. They cannot try this with some citizens. They cannot try this with an average American citizen. Why is it happening to Nigerians and others from the continent? So that's a big question mark for the current administration. So much to unpack this Monday morning, national issues and issues around the world. But we're back in just a moment as we get to take a look at the dailies. Please stay with us.
Welcome back. Let's talk about what the dailies are leading with. This Nigeria is where we're going to first. Well, it leads with two major stories. Our guest is already seated with us to ensure that it does justice to this conversation as far as and the lines in the papers are concerned. Mr. Deyemi Saka is a public affairs analyst. He joins us right here in our Lagos studio. Mr. Saka, thank you so much for coming on the program.
It's nice to be here.
All right, so let's get straight to business. Spoiled for choice, that's the language we like to use here. So let's go to whatever it is our hands can be laid on. This Nigeria is the one I started with. FG dismisses 8.8 trillion naira shadow budget allocation, calls criticism inaccurate, misleading, and conjectural. And then there's a story about stop fresh killings and face action. Nigeria won South Africa. But let's talk about this one. So first, when I saw the response of the Honorable Minister of the Economy and Coordinating Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, first I liked the fact that it was a very civil response.
Yeah.
Yes, that's how to respond to who is checking on you. But what do you make of it?
Yeah, I probably want to align, not probably, I'm definitely going to align with the Minister of Finance and is it a coordinating Minister for Economy and what have you? Because you cannot make such allegations without giving us, facts, details. It was a generic accusation, said Nigeria spends, the federal government spends this amount of money outside budgetary allocation on some project. Which projects? You didn't tell us the project, you didn't tell us the exact project, which location, because like the minister said, they are in line with section 82 to 83, 80 to 83 of the Constitution that deals with public revenue. A breach of the electoral, the Appropriation Act is impeachable. You can't spend a dime outside appropriation. So now the question is, I even saw the statement of Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. I read through and I was looking for specifics, and it's not there. You cannot just add fuel to the burning fire. It's like you just want to set the country up, or set the people up ride them up against the government, and it's unfair. You should respect our sovereignty as a nation. You should respect how we do things. You didn't tell us. Yes, the budget is an open document for everybody to access, but you don't just do it. It's unfair, it's insincere, and it's bad. And I think the government should go further. I think they should demand a retraction from the organization. I'm serious.
From with IMF?
Yes, this is the Nigerian office that made the statement. You should tell us where you're coming from, what you saw, and how you came about the allegations or your position.
The government is not debating IMF's position. So let's be clear on what the government is talking about. The government is debating. Well, the government did not respond to the IMF. The government actually was responding to Alhaji Atiku Abubakar's understanding of IMF's position, which IMF has said is statistical discrepancy. That's at the time they were perhaps collating their results. These are the discrepancies they saw that they will need some explainers. I'll read some things to you. I didn't want to go to the details. So they will say things like, an estimated statistical discrepancy of 2.7% GDP could reflect spending not captured. Those were the words, not captured by the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation. And they went on to say the January 2026 Repeal and Reenactment Bill for 2024-2025 budget incorporated an expose and some expenditure had been executed outside the budget. Financing came from Eurobonds and they listed. So what was the minister's response to those particular lines? Because I needed, for the purpose of education, so that people understand this before they weigh in. The minister said, the IMF's observation relates primarily, which is important, to the comprehensiveness, timing, and presentation of fiscal reporting rather than the legality of the expenditure. So they were referencing first-line charges, statutory transfers, and all of those times. So there is a reporting system, and the timing of those reporting system and how comprehensive those reporting system, which the IMF said was not done, which the government has not objected that it was not done, but they said some reenactments were done to repeal and reenact.
Like violence of the budget.
Not necessarily violence. Not necessarily
violence. But for me, when I read it, I was, like I insist, I'm talking as a patriot. Because I feel.
No, but this is economic data.
I know.
So
I'm talking as fact is fact. And they have their metrics in measuring and analyzing things. But when you start talking about, yes, it gives clear understanding where they're coming from. But so the way the news was pushed, especially by the opposition, like you pointed out, it made it look as if there was an infraction of the Appropriation Act, and that was I was asking for specifics. And that's why I stand on it. Like, we shouldn't just, eat up the polity with statements or probably exaggerating or misrepresenting facts. That's where I'm coming from.
Well, I'm not going to, but I'm just saying facts are facts.
Facts are facts. And I said,
So the import, I had to read the very import of this conversation.
Well, I think there's this allegation about the non-implementation of appropriation Act since 2024. We keep rolling it over. We don't know which budgets we're running at all. Overlapping. And I think the presidency and this administration has to find a way to resolve this. You know, it's actually imposed on investors' confidence as well. Because you don't know where you don't know what is for what, when to invest, or where to pull out your investment, or where to divert your investment.
Yes.
I mean, let's leave that and go to the Vanguard, because it also leads with another interesting rider this morning. PFIPC controversy, how SGF's office cleared Adeyemi for Canada summit. Troubling pattern of scandals, now too frequent. Article says presidency can't escape accountability over Gbajabiamila claims. The PDP Serap also asking Akpabio Abbas to explain 1.3 billion naira allocation to fictitious the PFIPC. I mean, we have left one alleged corruption scandal to perhaps another one. I'm not sure how Adeyemi has all of the guts and effrontery, but it looks like, because he granted another media chat, or had an interface with the media recently, I think over the weekend, and he was still insisting and saying, look, if this indeed was not created by the government, how come it went through the CBN's office with 4 directors and over how many staff in it? Where do you think Adeyemi is getting his backing from? Because the SGF, allegedly, or the SGF's office, cleared Adeyemi for a particular summit in Canada.
You see, I think this is probably mismanaged, and I'm probably going to blame the presidency for one thing. It's like, I have to put it in a better way so I don't sound so vulgar. 2 fighting, you have 2 kids fighting, and they come to you as a father, reported the matter to you, and you dealt with one, or you're showing that you're ready to deal with one, and you're showing that you're ready to shield one. There's an allegation, a counter allegation, and I think both of them should be seen, or should be pushed forward or put forward for punishment. Now, the presidency would have made a lot of sense to someone like me if you are accusing, or probably saying you want to take up Prince Adeyemi Matthew, for overbearing, for misconduct, overbearing actions and activities, exuberating actions. You come up with how could you 135 bank accounts, things like that will still make sense. But to just say the agency is fictitious, how did you get an office in the Federal Secretariat? It's not a shopping mall where you can just go pay rent and get an office there. That is one. How did he get security details attached to him as escorts? That's what you should look at. He had photo ops with the EFCC chairman at some point. He had held
international meetings
with foreign nationals and organizations and what have you. If you're taking him for overlapping his functions and probably imposing on the functions of the National Promotional Export Promotional Council, that will stand. If you're taking him for financial misconduct, is not in line with the TSC, that makes a lot of sense. If you are saying yes, because another thing we should look at is this: money could change hands in terms when it comes to seeking appointments and getting people appointments and what have you, because we have not accepted lobbying as a culture or as a profession in Nigeria. Not necessarily that the office holder is going to tell you go and collect money, but some people monetize their assets. I have access to this person, and if the person's CV is impressive, the person in a public office is probably acting on goodwill and good judgment, not knowing that you probably monetize and you've maximized your profit.
This one you're saying that we've not embraced lobbying.
No, I'm going to cite an instance.
Because if we are where we are right now in terms of allegations of corruption, by the time we accept lobbying as a culture in this country, then it means that...
No, by the time we bring lobbying, most of the things classified as corruption would no more be corruption. And that's the truth. In America, if I want to get a bill passed, I could go to a senator or probably somebody in the committee, take him on a vacation and his family, and that's not corruption. It's lobbying. I could make sure I want him to influence this and probably do things for his constituency. It's not corruption in America, it's lobbying. So I tell you, we bring lobbying and inculcate lobbying into our parties in Nigeria. Most of the things we call corruption will no more be corruption. And it's just like when you make things common, open. It's when you put something on that ban or something that there's always the tendency people want to rush into it out of excitement. But when it's common, it's a common thing. There's nothing makes you spectacular or special if you go into it or go about it. So, for me, the presidency would have handled it better. Rather than shielding Frederick Gbajabiamila, it should have been suspended. And because he's also involved in this whole thing. And
the chief of staff.
Yes. And the deputy chief of staff in the presidency was. And you see, there are smart ways to go about things. It's from Bayo Onanuga's statement to, because how can you explain? And for somebody like us that has been studying the Appropriation Act since forever, I think what they do since I started studying is copy and paste. So when you just look at it, you'll be surprised that from 2012 to date, there's always a budgetary allocation to the president and the office of the vice president for sporting equipment and sporting activities. Have you seen any inter-department, inter-house sports at Aso? It's a copy and pasting year in, year out. So the guy getting that amount of money might just be, okay, fine, it's been there for a while, let us put it there. The president might be insulated because you expect your chief of staff, your principal secretary, and everybody to have done their bit, the budget office to have done their bit, the executive, the Ministry of Finance, and the Appropriation Committee in both the House and Senate, all just need to sign. So if you're expecting the president to go line by line on the budgetary allocation to which office, to which MDAs, to which department, I think that is being delusional. The one other thing this federal government statement or position is doing, or probably will end up doing to Nigerians, as an MD or power starter, if you're talking to any multinational, how are you going to show you're going to get the clearance and what have you? Because they're not sure of who is who. You want to, because even they're saying somebody they've met, because for this guy to meet with nationals now, or foreign nationals, those guys would have gone through their high commissions, or missions, or embassies. They've gone through the Chamber of Commerce. Maybe Nigeria, China, Nigeria, France, Nigeria, Canada to, authenticate and, validate the claims. And all these things, and now they'll be telling you that we are not even sure of Nigeria anymore. And the foreign investment drive we're pushing about this administration is, championing everything, or probably will be affected. Because it's only when you see Mr. President sit down across the table with you that you want to believe anything.
Okay, so that for clarity, so that our people will not misunderstand you, lobbying is okay, but there are thin lines between lobbying and not lobbying.
Yeah.
So first, lobbying is about persuasion, using talk to Congress members, make a case. But when you say carry family to travel, that's outside because there's a certain level of funding and bribery that the American government looks at.
And there's even a cap on what you spend on.
So there is a thin line. It's not something where
we probably have to draw the line.
Yes, a thin line. So when it involves things that border on what can be described as bribery, one way or the other, it becomes a problem. So that we're clear.
Yeah, we're clear.
I'm not trying to argue that lobbying is not a thing. I'm just saying that the extent to which you can lobby, if you carry somebody's family to go and do holiday and all of that, that will be looked at in a different light altogether. So, but let's stay with the Vanguard newspaper. I think that's what we're. Let's stay with that before we leave to other papers. And two issues that has to do with the election. First, just beneath that picture where we see I think that should be the governor of Ekiti, visiting persons at the hospital. U.S. to closely monitor 2027 polls. Congressman Riley Moore, he's been very popular in Nigeria since this whole genocide conversation. 2027 polls, parties rush to meet INEC's uploading deadline. That's at page 6 and also page 8 and page 9 read on the front page of the Vanguard. What do you make of those stories?
Sorry, please, how closer or closely or more closely do they want to monitor Nigeria's elections? They've always been doing that since 1999. I think a lot of people, and this is where I stand, you might disagree. I think the man's statement is a product of lobbying as well. And that's also. Because sometimes you look at the genocide claim. Yes, I believe, and I was not trying to take us back, trying to hit, anger people, but are Christians being killed in Nigeria? Yes. But are Muslims being killed in Nigeria as well? Yes. And because of the location, not because of the religion. Anybody that understands Nigeria will tell you that if there's a killing or if there's massive killings in Benue, Plateau, Nasarawa, Taraba, the high probability that victims will be Christian is there. If people get killed in Zamfara, Sokoto, Kebbi, even Ogun State, you'll be shocked. It tilts towards Muslims. So you probably feel that somebody just wanted to achieve something. And that's why I believe from the lobbies, from the genocide claims to these recent claims is a product of lobbying. And that's the truth. For me, my truth. Okay. But they've been monitoring our elections since 1999. EU has been monitoring with the US. There are all foreign nations send election observers. And so what's new? How closely are they going to send everybody to the 704 local governments in Nigeria? I'm waiting. Because even election monitoring in Nigeria, they pick key states, they distribute themselves to some units, and they write their reports. It's not as if they're everywhere all over the country.
They can't be everywhere, but perhaps is that not the reason why maybe we don't see some of the things that we used to see in the past in our elections? Don't you think maybe these foreign eyes, the fact that sometimes they threaten politicians with visa ban and all of that, maybe that's why it's perhaps...
No, I don't think so.
Maybe it's perhaps why we are where we are today. If we don't have some of those kind of threats...
it's not where we are today. It's the demonstration of the political will at some point might not be enough to think, we find our electoral system, and that is why if you want to have, it was in this country we had option A for in 1993 without technology, and everybody keeps beating their chest saying that was free and fair. And you now realize, ask yourself, with the import of technology into our electoral system, we're having these claims, counter claims. It's the conduct of our politicians that mess up our polity. If they are decent, responsible with the game or how they play the game, our electoral system will be clean. So it's not about the threats of visa ban, or if you tell me not to come to America, I can as well go to another country that wants me. America is not heaven.
Well, it's not as simplistic as you're talking about
because there was a time we had a ban, a sanction from US, and the commander-in-chief then felt we could look elsewhere. And yes, it could be tough, but we didn't crumble as a nation.
You don't want to. I don't like colonialism or some of these things. So, but however, it's a global village now. There are things that we need the West for. There are things that the West
need each other.
So you have to be very careful how you behave yourself. I'm not saying they are perfect, but you also have to be very careful, because remember, especially when it comes to a warfare, we don't manufacture these things. And when we need to prosecute our war, these are the people you lean on. And when they don't give you what you need, you suffer for a while.
Defense industry because your defense industry or purchase defines your foreign policy. You have to be careful where you buy from or where you don't buy from. But if US doesn't want to sell to me, I probably want to go to Russia or Brazil or probably.
I'm telling you, it's not as simplistic as you're saying.
But there are some things you can, anything close to Apache or what have you, or close to civil engineering, or can I say trademark by US? Even if you're not buying for them, you can't do a third-party purchase. We know that.
So there are things that are not as simple. I don't want to go, because it's security, I don't want to go to details. But let's go to the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian newspaper's US IPO drives tests Nigerian fintech's governance compliance strength. So if we read through that story, it says that Nigeria's fintechs may be under pressure to address corporate governance questions, poor corporate disclosure, and weak internal control before transitioning into global brands and maintain a mainstream market. Market insights suggest poor governance could undermine the huge prospect of turning fintechs into mainstream banking and global brands. Ambitions, many of them are currently pushing aggressively. So this is, for me, it's more like how these guys in the West build transgenerational companies that outlive them, who started
the founders and everything,
than what we do here. So I think this is a good move.
It's a very good one. It's okay, let's take an instance. There was a fintech company that sponsored a reality show with huge amounts of funds, and the following year was going under. It talks about the corporate governance as well. It speaks to the accountability. It speaks to, because I think in Africa and in Nigeria, except few persons that have divorced themselves from or been able to separate their identity from the company and organizations they founded. So oftentimes you find these people still believing, seeing this as it's my thing. They can always dip their hands into the funds of the corporation or the company or organization, thinking it's their money. You know, because you ask yourself, a lot of fintech startups get these grants and what have you. They run at they start the race, at a very top speed, and 4 or 5 years down the line, they bankrupt. And I think this is nice. I'm so much in love with this, and I believe. And you think you expect the Ministry of Finance, the CBN at some point, and the CBN to probably come out with stringent policies as well. Almost when it comes to fintech.
Yeah, the central bank, they're trying. In some part. This central bank is not joking. So, Cardoso is not coming to play with anybody.
Still with the Guardian, another story that gets my attention. Chief of Army Staff assures ongoing operation to rescue Oyo abductees. Since May 15, in 9 days, it will be 2 months since 37 pupils, I think teachers, were kidnapped or taken to an unknown location. When the Chief of Army Staff says operation or rescue operation is ongoing, I'm not sure exactly what he means. But imagine the rains, the weather conditions when you're kidnapped. I don't wish that for any of my enemies. You cannot eat what you would love to eat. You cannot drink the kind of water you would love to drink. But pupils have been subjected to all of this, mothers and teachers and all of that. I wonder if you think the Nigerian government is helpless.
No, the Nigerian government is not helpless. It's just being careful, because in any hostage crisis situation, the top priority is to get your people back to safety, if possible, all. So that's influence and dictates your actions and what have you. I have a lot to say about that, but I would not want to say, because it probably could.
Let's let Nigerians.
For us to have an understanding of where we're going to, we should have an understanding of where we're coming from. And in this instance, I probably want us to look at, if we probably do not identify the real perpetrators of these acts, we probably will be shooting blank. To some of us, we believe this is an action carried out by copycats, and they're finding a way to get out of it. You so probably want to go about it. I'm going to explain that. You probably want to be that. It gives you a reminder of the 1996 coup of late General Dia, where there was a plot within a plot. So some of us still want to go further to believe that, yes, the copycats recruited the usual suspects, and the unusual suspects had a plot within the plot, and that is where we have. So it makes it, when I mean the usual suspect, the bandits have been kidnapping for ransom and what have you, and the copycats are the criminal elements from that region, from that state, indigenous of those states collaborating with the usual suspect. That is one analysis to look at. The other one is this copycat just did it and they are in a fix. That is about that. I want to believe, because of my interface and because I've interacted at some point with, I know that there are a lot of things going on to get these people back to safety. If anybody is coming here to tell you that you don't negotiate with terrorists or bandits, the person is probably in the 19th century. Even America don't negotiate with terrorists. But nobody will come out to accept. There's still going to be that public denial by the government, but your priority is to get people back to safety. And I think the life of every Nigerian worth every dollar and cent in our foreign reserve.
But why deny? Why deny if you're going to negotiate?
They are not negotiate. You see, let me say this. There's this approach of the kinetic and
because the government says, look, we know where these people are. I thought that, I mean, Oyo State is geographically one of the largest states as well in Nigeria. I thought maybe perhaps the terrain, because it's a large state, maybe they won't even know where they are. But they have come out to say we know where they are. So why is it a problem? Were the military not trained for this kind of situations?
You don't want to risk collateral damage or damages. What's the essence of getting full bridge and you probably get there and don't get your people out and everybody just come back in body bags? It's not the bandits that is holding government, frontal actions. It's the people, in captivity. And that's the truth.
My point is, was the police, was the army, were they not trained for this kind of situation?
That is why they are negotiating, because the training they have for this kind of situation is to have a negotiator in an hostage crisis situation. I'll give you an instance. Just 3 weeks after, there was a senator came out and said there was a woman selling beans and bread and was making sales and she didn't know what happened. In a village called Ponyo. Ponyo is between Ekiti and Kogi. A woman sells Nono. And she said she saw some guys 4 of them came and bought Nono worth of 15,000 naira. And what she did immediately was alerted the vigilante group in the community, and they went with the combined efforts of the vigilante group, the military and the police. They caught these guys, neutralized 6 of the 8 bandits, and rescued 2 hostages. What is key here is the human intelligence. The community is key. There was a time while I was in opposition, when I'm in opposition, strong opposition, criticizing anything government, I was part of the people that was saying when the insurgency lasts more than 24 hours, the government has
APC?
I'm not an APC. I said when I was against anything in government. Okay. Now I'm rational now. I believe everything, but I not said that Abacha never said that. And without blaming the victim, and this is not what I'm trying to do. If insecurity thrives and lasts more than 24 hours, 48 hours in the community, the people are complicit. Because if you don't harbor them, I go to Mina regularly, and I want to let you know that. From Mokwa to Mina, if you have a breakdown and you have a good worth of 200 million naira in your vehicle, once you lock it, come back 3 days time, you see it intact. Nobody will touch your car. But
what year was that?
Till tomorrow.
From Mokwa?
Yes, and I can't speak for Mokwa.
Niger State.
From Mokwa to Bida, I say this and I beat my chest and I say this with so much conviction and confidence. But now you'll be shocked that Kanji, the other side of Mokwa, what have you, is being ravaged. So what and they are both in Niger State. So we should, when they were terrorizing them along Ekole, Ekitintu, the Adaxis, Okeako, Ekpa, and everything, the major logistics supplier for the bandits in the Axis was somebody from that community in Aedo.
All right, so, the responsibility, no matter how we look at it,
it still falls on the government.
Yes, at the end of the day, because that is their primary responsibility. Of course, there is a collaborative effort that has to come in from community and all of that. But the signaling of government, the bigger problem some of us have raised is the fact that the ease of mass abduction is unacceptable. There's crime everywhere, but the ease of mass abduction in Nigeria is not acceptable.
We could probably get to that later, because the one thing is we are undermanned, without making excuse for the government. The combined strength of the Nigerian military is 343,000.
Whatever the issues are you going to blame me?
I'm not going to blame you. But we're going to blame the government. But people are not listening as well.
It's the signaling. So I remember there was an employment opportunity, I think in one of the southern states, where the army was complaining that people are not coming on. And I saw people doing video online, which is sad for me as a patriot to see. People are saying when there's CBN job, EFCC immigration, you don't come to shout that you're not. We won't even know. We won't even know it exists.
There's no employment opportunities in those places, though.
And
it's always filled.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. The people are saying when it's CBN immigration, all these ones that people classify in a certain way, nobody hears. But when it's time for army and police, you want us to come and join. So the government needs to do something to bring confidence back for the people to love their country enough to say, maybe I can go this path. But let's go to the Abuja Inquirer. It leads with literally everything. But let's look at one story on page 14, where NAFDAC rather raises alarm over unsafe food, pushes nationwide safety reforms. I think I like this.
No, there was a time I went into I went to a store, one popular, retail store in Nigeria, and I bought something, and I just checked the expiry date, and the shelf life of the product was just like a month or two. A lot of us, without blaming us now, just assume or we just believe that once we walk into these retail outlets or this thing, everything we are buying there is safe. The value chain of the food security in Nigeria is something else. You look at a lot of people misapply or wrongly apply preservatives or what have you, herbicide or pesticides on the farm. That's even the beginning. They get to the storage facility, to combat weevil and other things, they use all sorts of chemicals. And some people, because they just want to get back to the market or sell this thing on time, they come up with all kind of things to just, fast track the ripening of products. And, you can't just be too careful in Nigeria when it comes to food security, because you don't know what you're eating. You probably want to buy. That's why some people advise when you get home, when you buy these things, just go home, wash it your own way, because you probably want to buy oranges or something from a guy selling those things on the wheelbarrow. Obviously, you should go wash it. But because some of us are so much in a hurry, you just help me peel it. You don't even know. So it's scary. If you can just imagine, it's better imagined. Because if you just want to sit down, ponder, and be careful, you probably will not want to eat anything apart from what you grow or cultivate in your backyard. And that's the truth.
Well, maybe in 15 seconds or 20 seconds, I wanted to speak to the story around xenophobia, still staying with the Abuja Inquiry. Maybe in 15 seconds or less, just quickly do that for us so we can wrap up with this session, where again we see that 2 Nigerians were confirmed dead over the weekend, and it's a big challenge.
I think the federal government probably is doing its better when it comes to that. But I laugh at South Africa.
You say the government is doing it?
No, because you look at South Africa as a sovereign state. There's a limit to how much you could have boots on ground to protect your people. The best you could do for them is let them get to your high commission if you have a functioning one there. But can it house Nigerians in South Africa? Because at some point, South Africa was like the next Lagos to Nigerians. So the huge population there, the logistic problem getting them back to safety, I can imagine how cumbersome that will be. But I say I laugh at South Africa because the first country that tried this under Idi Amin became a mess. The second country under Mugabe became a mess. Obviously, 5-6 years from now, the South African rand will be nothing more than a piece of paper. And South Africa that's chasing people out will now be begging people to come to invest in their country.
Okay,
it's going to happen. They'll beg.
I don't want any African country to fall anyway.
But it's
Pan-African.
But I guess, but it's out there. You see,
it's a very sad tale.
Thunder has struck twice. Yeah. This is the 3rd time. And in Uganda under Idi Amin, in Zimbabwe under Mugabe, Ramaphosa, and because it's a lot of things. So some of us we probably want to say, yes, some of us believe in conspiracy theory. Maybe there's an internal influence trying to trigger this. Ramaphosa is unpopular, just like any time the guy in Israel becomes unpopular, he thinks of which country should I bomb. So Ramaphosa is unpopular, and that's why he's doing this. He's encouraging this as well.
Well, let's see how it goes. Big allegations. There, Mr. Akai is a public affairs analyst. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. We'll take a break. When we come back after this break, we'll get to that very contentious issue about the 8.8 or 2-point-something% of the GDP that the IMF had reported. Well, it is larger to Kopomoka that specifically noted 8.8 trillion. But the language of the IMF has to do with the recordings of that 2.2 or so % of the GDP that they talked about in the budget. Well, in case you're not clear on what all of this is all about, the next conversation will help you make sense of it. Stay with us.
Many thanks indeed for staying with us right here on the Morning Brief. Let's head into that conversation as we cross over live to our Abuja studios, where Mr. Vayala Kwaga joins us live on the program. He's the Country Director of Budget Foundation. Thank you indeed for joining us on the program, Mr. Kwaga.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Yes, so let's begin with the preliminaries. For those who do not understand, help us dissect and break down some of your major takeaways from this article, the assessment article from the International Monetary Fund, the IMF.
So the Article 4 consultation is a routine assessment that the International Monetary Fund carries out for countries around the world, Nigeria being one of them. And essentially, the IMF provides a level of assessment of the monetary space, of the fiscal space, of the external sector, etc., as a means to advise countries, as a means to point out what they might view as a challenge or an irregularity in how the economy is being run and how the economy is being managed. The IMF has offerings in the form of capacity development that it provides for countries to ensure that, in the aggregate, there is a stable financial system. So they have projections, they have assessments, they have evaluations of precisely how the economy is being run and how it's being managed. And they give these advisories in different sequences. They look at the short term, medium term, and of course, the long term. So they give out these suggestions, recommendations on what to do, in the monetary space, in the fiscal space, in the external sector, etc., as a means for countries to put themselves on a path towards, optimal development, towards full employment, towards a stable financial system. And that's essentially what the Article 4 consultation is. It's a means through which the IMF, looks at the pulse of a nation, having gone through various conversations with, different classes of individuals, from civil society organizations to even, members of the government. In fact, in this edition, they give thanks to the former Minister for Power, the former Minister, Minister Wale Edun, and of course the current Minister for Finance, among other people that they spoke to. So it's usually a very comprehensive assessment. This one is about 88 pages, complete with diagrams, complete with statistics, on where a country is financially and where they propose it should be, if it follows their recommendations.
So the big question perhaps would be at this point, where many Nigerians would want to know whether or not these assessments are true, or these claims are true. The federal government, the Minister of Finance, has had to defend the fact that the government, in that particular article from the Minister of Finance, says the federal government does not operate a shadow budget or expend public funds outside the constitutional and statutory framework established for public finance. From what you have seen, because I know that your foundation too is really, really very familiar with the figures and the numbers whenever budgets are released, do you think, or do you agree with this assessment of Article 4 by the IMF?
So to be clear, the IMF isn't insinuating that anything illegal happened. What the term used was a statistical discrepancy, and that's what you get when you are dealing with the economy at a macro level. You are dealing with very, very large numbers, and depending on how you report those numbers, certain things can be clear, while other things can seem somewhat obscure. I mean, even in our own National Chart of Accounts framework, we have 6 classification languages. Depending on the one you use, certain monies might appear and certain monies might not appear because they look at different items. Some look at the spending agency or the revenue collecting agency. Some look at the ultimate destination of the money. Some look at what is being bought. So let's be very clear. The article wasn't casting any form of aspersion on the way the government, is reporting. However, it did say that the way and the manner in which the numbers were presented and the challenges in the multiple overlapping budgets created some form of miscommunication that they would like some clarity on. If you recall, we have been running multiple budgets since 2023, since this administration began. And that has created some problems regarding ultimate fiscal reporting. When you add to that the challenge of financial reporting by major executive bodies, the Office of the Accountant General, the Ministry of Finance, the now Nigeria Revenue Service, there's a problem with complementarity. What one organ or MDA reports is almost unintelligible by the other, and you cannot reconcile and harmonize their reporting, which you should be able to do because it's one government. There's also the problem of scope. There are very few government-owned agencies who pass their budgets alongside, the regular financial year cycle of passage of budgets, which usually starts at the fourth quarter of the end of the year. So there are a lot of agencies, some departments that simply are not part of the regular budgeting cycle. And that means that there's a lot of finances that are outside the knowledge of what you and I know as the routine cycle. There's also the problem of granularity. My organization has spoken about this several times, that there needs to be detail, there needs to be a level of depth in fiscal reporting, so that citizens, so that the legislature, so that the media is not left to speculate how much the government is earning or how much the government has spent. This comprehensiveness, this granularity leaves very little room for speculation. It leaves very little room for people to conjure what may have happened, where this information is provided very clearly. And, we want to implore this new minister to ensure that that harmonization covers the board, from the budget office to the Ministry of Finance, to the Office of the Accountant General, to the Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning as well. There should be unified reporting that is as clear as day and allows people to draw reasonable conclusions from the data presented.
So it looks like they are saying, as at the time we're compiling this report, there are certain things we're not seeing. So I'm going to read some of the languages that they use here so you can give simplistic expert interpretation to it so that people can follow. Because the data, the numbers that came in terms of the value, 8.8 trillion, if I'm correct, came from the former Vice President, Atiku Abubakar. But the language that the IMF used in their report is slightly different. But there's something else they raise, which is quite important. You mentioned it. More like, if you look at their language at the federal government level, for which more granular information is available, it simply tells me that they are saying maybe we cannot speak to subnationals as much as we can speak to federal, but we still have this discrepancy. So the language they use here, and I want you to speak to it, is that an estimated statistical discrepancy of 2.7% of the GDP could reflect spending not captured by the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation. But just the next line, they went on to say, the January 2026 repeal and reenactment bills for 2024 and 2025 incorporated some expenditures that had been executed outside the budgets. What are they saying here?
I mean, it's interesting that you quote that portion. This administration did something that I felt, even legally speaking, as a lawyer, was very curious. In accounting, when you close a financial year, you start the new financial year with an opening balance being the balance you brought forward from the previous financial year, or in this case, fiscal year. The government could have easily done that. That would have been far neater and more arranged. But it decided to repeal and reenact a legislation, which I still am, baffled as to why that was done. Before the repeal and reenactment of those two pieces of legislation, the Lagos-Calabar Expressway project was not in any budget. It was completely absent, and there was a lot of controversy surrounding that project, from the procurement to the pricing, environmental impact assessments, at the time the project was even announced, had not been done. And I know the media, went very far to investigate that matter and, came up with more questions than answers. But it found its way into one of the repeal and reenactment bills. And that then poses the problem that the IMF was referring to. What fiscal year are we referencing? The 2025 capital expenditure component of the 2025 budget ostensibly ended last month. The capital expenditure component was pushed to end June 2026. So where does 2025 fiscal year reporting end, and where does 2026 fiscal reporting year commence if the president only signed the budget, sometime in April of 2026? That's the 2026 fiscal year. And there are, a slew of projects, Kano, Lagos rail projects, within capital supplementation, and other line items also very curious within capital supplementation. And that raises another question: why are these projects not coming under agencies of government so that they can be properly documented, so they can be properly sequenced, and so that even the National Assembly, it should have had this matter debated thoroughly. But unfortunately, that was not the case. And this sort of, inappropriate way of financial reporting and of documentation raises the questions that the IMF claims, are very, very serious. If you look at the difference between the deficit for the 2025 approved budget and the 2026 approved budget, it's like 19 trillion. What the IMF is saying is that deficit could even be slightly more. I'll round up by saying that the 8 trillion may have been going over the top a bit. Which GDP was the former vice president using? Was it real? Was it nominal? What GDP was he using exactly? But 2% of GDP, however you calculate it, is still very, very significant. And I suppose that's why the IMF flagged that issue.
So in your because I read everybody's thought. I read the IMF report. I've read Alhaji Atiku Abubakar's report. Article. I've also read the minister's response. So if I want to summarize where the former vice president, who is in the opposition, is talking about, he talked about an unrecorded expenditure. He even raised concern about what he calls the illegal deduction to the tune of 800 billion from subnationals FAC. Well, he didn't provide any evidence, but that's his own allegation. Talked about shadow government. So from this report, which is generating a lot of talking points in the polity, what are you saying in clear terms from the expert point of view? No money is missing, or the books were not properly documented, or as at the time this report came out, the bookkeeping was not properly done, but it's been adjusted to reflect what the concerns are by the former vice president? What exactly are we dealing with here?
So I think it would be safe to say that the bookkeeping is not being done as comprehensively and as timely as it should. And again, this creates more problems because in the absence of information, people will reasonably speculate. This current administration has not been particularly forthcoming when it comes to fiscal information. The legislature had some challenge with the Minister of Finance, as at the time Minister Wale Edun was at the helm, where they kept on questioning why there had not been releases, for capital expenditure. They questioned Wale Edun, they questioned the Minister for State, they brought in the Accountant General. Everyone kept on shifting the blame. And that is that sends a very poor signal, not just to investors who want to be confident in how an economy is run, but it's doing citizens an incredible disservice. The government exists to serve citizens, not the other way around. Yes, citizens have their obligations to pay taxes, of course, and to be law-abiding. But where you have a regime that prefers, to withhold information unless it is being pushed, unless it is being probed and prodded, you are creating difficulties in that people will tend to expect the worst, especially in a country like Nigeria, where impunity seems to reign. I will say that what the president stated at the floor of the National Assembly when he was presenting the budget, that he wants an end to the multiple overlapping budgets, is a good sign. I hope it's followed through. But the National Assembly needs to understand that it exists, it serves at the pleasure of citizens. That's why they are representatives. They are directly representing their constituents. They are not representing the party. They are representing their citizens fundamentally. Yes, they belong to parties, of course, but their primary concern should be the welfare of Nigerians. And that should translate to adequate scrutiny, questioning, rigid and rigorous evaluation, of proposals brought to them by the executive. Again, I will reiterate that it's poor documentation. And what needs to happen is that there needs to be comprehensive reporting that is done in a way that when you look at documentation and reporting from the Office of the Accountant General, and that office produces regular reports, not the piecemeal, ad hoc, once in a while reporting. But when that office produces routine reports, you can compare it to reporting done by the Ministry for Budget and Planning, for instance. You can compare it to the budget implementation reports of the Budget Office of the Federation, which, by the way, are still late. The earliest that we have is Q3 2025. So if we are already in Q3 2026. So how much gap is there in terms of information, in terms of documentation, in terms of reporting that Nigerian citizens have a right to know? I think that lacuna is something that can be easily addressed. It will require a different take on how information is being presented, but it's something that needs to start immediately, so that Nigerian citizens, so that the media, so that researchers and analysts and the international community and investors can see that Nigeria is a country that takes itself seriously. A lot of this sloppiness is simply because we don't take ourselves seriously enough. And these things have implications, bordering on what the IMF...
Just if you can answer this in maybe 20 seconds so that my colleague can comment. So, because I'm mixing politics and economics now. So the response...
It's impossible not to do so.
Yes. The response of the Honorable Minister to the former Vice President, is it satisfied? Did he answer the question of missing or not missing satisfactorily?
So I don't think it's even a case of money being missing.
Yes, because that's his allusion,
something else
unaccounted for.
Yes. Yes, so it's language is very powerful, and what you say can frame a conversation. I think the minister's response was comprehensive, but he still needs to demonstrate that by actually publishing these reports so that he can refer to evidence and not statements and comments, from his position of authority. Let's see the data, let's see the evidence that you have.
Well, Mr. Kogwa, I guess this is why many Nigerians would have to, pay particular attention to the country's budgets a bit more, because this is not merely figures. It looks like a lot of things play on, beyond those numbers. I wonder what you think how you think this speaks about our budgeting culture as a people. Some years ago, we had battled with budget padding, and here we go again. So I wonder, speak to that, how you think this speaks to our budgeting as a people, our budgeting culture. My second question would be, when I looked at that Article 4, there's still that caution from the IMF. There's still the fact that, yes, your reforms are good, but it doesn't look like things are going to be better. On the macro side of things, everything looks sweet and good. The GDP, fantastic. The growth rate for this year, I think 4.1% compared to 4% last year and all of that. But the IMF is also warning of tougher times ahead. Nigerians have had to bear this for the last 3 years. I'm just wondering, from your standpoint, what do you see?
So, I mean, in response to your first point, our budgeting culture really leaves a lot to be desired, absolutely, from different perspectives, from the way budget proposals are developed and the apparent very limited use of data, of quantitative data, qualitative data that feeds into the budget proposal process, to the way the budget proposal is debated at the Federal Executive Council level, to the way the budget is even presented and debated at the legislature. Very minimal rigor. It's more as if parliamentarians want to be seen asking funny questions on TV and not going into the nitty-gritty, the complexities, the interdependencies, of this budget proposal. From the timeliness, the budget tends to come very, very late. In fact, to even the medium-term expenditure framework presentation and how that should be the premise upon which a budget is passed. This medium-term expenditure framework came several months late. The budget for 2026 was signed several months late, well into, the fiscal year. Of course, the issue of implementation and reporting on that implementation is a key problem that does not seem to occupy the minds of the executive in terms of implementation and comparing previous years' quality of implementation. So it's not about money, it's about creating value for Nigerians. And it doesn't really seem to me that successive governments are particularly concerned with improving on the quality of implementation, even down to the issue of audit. You can ask a primary school student and they will tell you that Nigeria's federal audit report is always several years late. And might I mention that the audit amendment bill is at the table of the president, and it doesn't seem like the president wants to sign or assent to a bill that essentially we are still using a 1956 legislation. This doesn't show the apparent unwillingness of the president to assent to the bill. Doesn't show that Nigeria wants to take how it spends its money or how it even reviews how it spends its money, very seriously. And we really hope that the president changes his mind and signs it, before election campaigns start in earnest. And then to the second point that you raised. Yes, the IMF did say that the macros seem relatively fair or satisfactory, but they are talking about the economy in the aggregate. And it's very easy for, of course, through the use of language, to make things seem like they are better than they are. How does that aggregate stability translate to improved outcomes for citizens? And this is a product of all levels of government, not just the federal government, but the subnationals as well, and the local governments. How do societies develop? How do societies move from a suboptimal state economically to a more developed state? It is where the economy is run in such a way that their livelihoods are enhanced, that productivity is easy to acquire. That means there is energy provision. That means there are good, clean, safe, tarred roads. That means that people don't have to spend their entire meager income on healthcare, out of pocket, on education, etc. That means that their economy is managed in such a way that whatever productive activity you find yourself doing, you can make some reasonable results in terms of income, and everyone is better off. These are fundamental issues on how our governments are run at all levels. Where businesses constantly complain of poor access to energy, where the penetration of credit to the private sector is still around 12%, where citizens are still spending 60-70% of their meager earnings on health care, on education. These are things that will depress their incomes. Where there's insecurity, for instance, where the rule of law is weak and contracts are not respected and enforced.
Yeah, I mean, we're absolutely pressed for time. Maybe a yes or no question. So do you think, in your assessment and that of budgets, do you align with the IMF's warnings of tougher times ahead? Just yes or no?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's going to be very, very tough going forward.
Wow. So Nigerians have to brace up. But we'll have to anchor our conversation here. Thank you indeed for your analysis and time on the program. Mr. Vayala Kwagar is the country director, Budget Foundation. Thank you indeed for your time on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Interesting times ahead for many Nigerians, especially back here at home. But this is the morning brief. We'll take a moment now. When we come back, we get to explore this conversation and politics ahead of 2027. And of course, we get to do this from the lens and eyes of those in the opposition, the ADC particularly. They get to speak with us after this time out. Please stay with us.
Let's bring in our guest, Ms. Kola Logbadion, is a member of the ADC, joins us from our Abuja studios. Ms. Logbadion, thank you for coming on the program. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Geoffrey. Good morning.
There's a lot to unpack with you as far as the state of the nation is concerned. Well, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar has rattled the system with his expose in terms of his article, which have been asking questions. The federal government has responded to it, saying that what happened was not about any form of extra budgetary spending. It was more of the timing, the comprehensiveness of that report. And that's coming from the Honorable Minister of Finance. I don't know whether I would like to speak to that, but beyond all of that, the time we're beginning to approach when it will hit a crescendo as far as the politics of 2027 is concerned. And the challenge here is that it looks like, does it feel, let me ask the question this way, does it feel like the opposition is really giving us alternative policy ideas to be able to say, okay, maybe the people that support the opposition will consider them, or they are just trying to survive?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Geoffrey. Let's start from where you began. On the issue of 8.8 trillion extra budgetary fund, I think that Alhaji Atiku Abubakar was acting upon the position of the IMF World Bank. I don't think that it was a concocted story. No. I think what he said was predicated on what is already in public space. So he was just reacting to what is in public space. But having said that, I believe it's the duty of government. If the position of the IMF World Bank is divergent from what they believe is official, I think they should respond to the messenger, not the person who is responding. If the position, which is what I believe government should do, if the position of that global group is not in tandem with what they believe to be the official position, they should go and respond to where the source of the story, the source of the news, not coming to address somebody who, in his own opinion, believes that that action is wrong. So that's what I would like to say. But having said that, I don't think that the opposition has given up at all. I don't think so. I think the opposition is just building. And when it reaches that crescendo that you spoke to, Nigerians will know if the opposition is prepared or is not prepared.
Mr. Logbadion, I was just going to ask perhaps where your principal got, what is the source of that 8.8 trillion naira? That was my first question. I was going to ask that question. Where's the source, please?
But that's what I've said now, that he was responding to what the IMF World Bank published.
They didn't mention 8.8 trillion naira. They didn't mention, so that's why I'm asking where he got his own figures from.
Who didn't mention?
The IMF, they didn't mention figures.
Oh, that means, if you say they didn't mention figures, what then did they mention? Because what article responded to was the report of the IMF.
All right. Well, let's leave that and talk about.
That's why I said, Geoffrey. That's why I said that if the government believes that what the IMF brought out is wrong, they should address the IMF.
Yeah, we understand.
Not the person who responded to the message.
You're on the other side of things now, so I understand you have to keep them on their toes. It's just that we just wanted to be sure of His Excellency Alhaji Atiku Abubakar's source of the allegations that he's making. I thought perhaps you should be in the know. But because you're on the other side of things, the opposition camp, so when you look at all of what has played out, I mean, there's also the allegations, the scandal around the chief of staff, the SGF, and one man called Adeyemi. How is the opposition also looking at this situation as well?
Well, I think that every opposition political party has had one thing or the other to say on the issue of the Adeyemi's office, or fictitious office, as the government loves to put it. I think every opposition political party has responded to that. And the question the opposition political parties are bringing forth is very simple. If you are saying that the office is fictitious, then how did the office have the opportunity, the strength, the capacity to swim through every institution of governance if it had no official recognition? How did it get an office? Who posted staff to the department or to the agency? So I think these are the issues that Nigerians are questioning. And I think that is why Nigerians are asking or saying that the chief of staff to the president, with whom Adeyemi or Adeniyi or Matthew or whatever his name is, began this spar, should be able to say, okay, you go and face investigation. But the chief of staff should be asked to step aside so that the presidency can truly look into the matter, whether by setting up a forensic group that will investigate the entire thing, or either by setting up a group that has a forensic knowledge to investigate the whole matter, or even asking the chief of staff to stand aside and allow the presidency itself to investigate itself. So I think what Nigerians are bothered about is the decision by the special advisor to the president of media to come out on his own and throw out a statement in the public. And I think that has even done more damage than the situation that was existing.
Mr. Alagbadiyan, let's stay with this issue because it looks like an issue that is not going away. And so there's a lot of pressure. Some are even calling for the stepping aside, as you stated, of Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, who is the chief of staff. I don't know whether there's a call for the SGF as well, but at least for Femi Gbajabiamila, you have been around. I don't know whether you served in government, but you've been around. You understand how these things work. What is confusing and difficult to say, because I'm trying to not to get to the substantive issues, which is difficult because the issue they say is already in court. People are saying, besides decision of court, this has to be probed independently. Is there any possibility? Now, I'm literally trying to play the devil's advocate for the government. Permit me to do that for a moment. Is there any possibility that someone could have three things happen that he can do it on his own? Three major things is difficult to defend, but let's just put it and for the purpose of argument. First, being able to have an office at the federal secretariat. It's not a shopping mall like our guest said this morning. Second, having a budgetary allocation earmarked, not in MDAs. It's not like a ministry of this, ministry of that, in the presidency, part of State House budget. Third, if you know what it takes to open an account with the CBN, which is the government banker. So these are the three things that I have listed to say, is there a possibility that this can happen without collusion?
Okay, Geoffrey, thank you very much. There is no way, and that's why I like the ending of your question, without collusion. There is no way in governance that this can happen without collusion. Number one, like you rightly asked, how will he get an office in the federal secretariat? If that were true, how will he begin to write a memo to the office of the SGF? And the office of the SGF will be acting upon the memo that he's sending to that office. It's an impossibility without collusion. How on earth will he have a budget submitted to the budget office, returned to the National Assembly to pass through appropriation process and be approved how will it get to the government, to the presidency itself, and the president will append his signature? I think Nigerians have truly been taken on the ride, because people believe that whatever they say is law. And you know, there's this syndrome about us in this country, particularly those people who go into government. They will say nothing they happen. Nothing they happen. So they do whatever they wish, they do what they like, under the pretext of nothing they happen. And that is why, you recall, when we started screaming in the ADC, that Barabe Amila gave a standing instruction to a member of the House of Rep, my brother Aleke Abejide, to go and destroy another political party. There was no denial, because nothing they happened until the courts intervened. So these are the challenges. Those who have been elected, and we've said this over and over, those who have been elected into office must go to office with a mindset of accountability. Where that is lacking, people do what they wish, they act the way they want. But whether you want to be accountable or not, accountability on its own will come back to haunt you. And that's what is happening in this situation. Because, Geoffrey, there is no way, from what we are reading, from what the Adeni or Adeyemi or Matthew, from what he is saying in public space, there's no way that government can claim not to know. There's no way that government can come out and say that it is fictitious. It's even laughable for government to come out and say, for the president to come out and say it's fictitious. Oh, so which means that you have no check process, which means that any idiot, I'm sorry to use this word, can just come up and say that, oh, I'm a special advisor to the president, and he will be given official recognition. I mean, there's a lot missing, Geoffrey. And it is very, 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 very painful that upon all the banditry that has been imposed on this country, that we can have a situation like what government is, like what the federal government, what the presidency is telling us. We have a situation in which an individual, without a seal of government, will come out and send budget to the National Assembly.
All right.
1.3 billion in the 2026 budget, and the National Assembly will approve it, and it will go to the presidency, and Mr. President will append the signature. I mean, I just cannot fathom what is happening to this country, honestly.
Well, Mr. Lobodio, that's my exact position as well. I cannot fathom it as well. But I also remember that you used to be in the PDP as well. What's the difference between this kind of perhaps weighty allegations of corruption that we are seeing now? How is this any different from what we experienced in your time as when the PDP was in power? And how does that make the ADC any different if the ADC does get a chance in 2027?
You see, Geoffrey.
Kelly.
When I watch football, when I watch football, and a player who's at the goalpost is playing back the football, it always gets me jittery. It is attempt to go back to the PDP days, almost 12 years down the line, is disturbing. Because when you were coming to government, you said PDP didn't do well, that's why you were coming. You even have a phantom political theory of change. That's what you brought. And now, you have shifted from change to renewed hopelessness. That's where we are. But what is happening today, Kenny, is worse than what we witnessed in time past when we have said we came to correct the situation. So we have even moved from all forms of banditry to governance banditry. What can be worse than that? So when we talk about the issue of corruption, what is the difference? The difference is in the fact that this government said they were coming to change the situation in the past. And rather than change the situation of the past and get glorified by the ordinary people, they have done worse form of things to the people.
It's a local deal.
And then Nigeria, you ask a question now, let me answer it.
Okay.
Let me answer your question.
Go ahead.
Now, Nigerians are beginning to ask the question, is this how is this the way it's going to be? And there's nobody to provide the answer. Unless and until Nigerians take that hard decision to say that if 12 years is like this, only God knows what 16 years will be like, and duly make a change that will be better than what we have currently.
Mr. Olobode, I think there's enough argument, analysis that is going on as far as what has happened, especially with this, what the government describes as fictitious agency within the presidency. So Nigerians are really hard on the government to give a satisfactory explanation. I don't know whether they have. But let's talk about politics and 2027. So we don't lose sight of the big game. The big day is in January 2027, when all of Nigerians will file out across the country to make a decision whether or not to keep President Bola Tinubu's job or to look for someone else. Well, you have pitched your tent as one of those who say it's not done well, that Alhaji Atiku Abubakar should be his natural replacement to continue and build in Nigeria. But with what is going on in terms of the battlegrounds of litigations, an inability perhaps of the opposition to be able to pull out enough alternative that Nigerians can rally around to say, okay, this is what the opposition is putting forward. Maybe or maybe not. It's going to be better than what President Bola Tinubu has put forward. Whatever President Bola Tinubu has put forward now, is what he's sustaining. It's not changing. It doesn't look like it's going to change. It's doubled down on it. All he's asking for is understanding. So do you think you're making enough inroad into the hearts of Nigerians ahead of 2027? That's my question.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know whether it's Geoffrey now. Okay.
It's me, Jeff.
But okay, thank you, Geoffrey. Okay, I think that the opposition has been assailed. For instance, I was in Lagos at the weekend, and people were laughingly saying that, oh, Tinubu is dealing with you people. So I asked a simple question. Is Tinubu dealing with us or is dealing with Nigerians? They were honest. They accepted that he's dealing with Nigerians. Because it's not about parties now. It's about even rescuing the country. It's about salvaging the country in the interest of the people. Geoffrey, I don't know whether you will recall, and I've done this argument in several places. On May 29, 2023, when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu introduced subsidy, absolute subsidy removal, I went on there on this very platform and I said, no, this is wrong. I said that we do not have the capacity to absorb the consequence of the absolute subsidy removal. You ought to have adopted what Atiku preached, which is a phased process, not taking the subsidy in absolute terms, but face it, let it be a gradual thing, so that Nigerians will be going into it gradually. But they dismissed it and went into it absolutely. But I also told the presidency then, well, this is your action. It will hurt Nigerians, but it will hurt your government more. And that's what is happening today. Because I still say it, I still insist, even though the governors of my party then, the governors in my party then expressed displeasure, they were not happy with what I was saying, but that was the reality for me, and that's where I understood it. You cannot come and take all our money and give it to governors. And now you are telling us to go back to those governors. Where are we going to find them? Where? The impact that governance should have, the shock absorbers that governance should create. Because governance essentially is about the people, it's about their welfare, it's about their security.
Okay.
Now you have taken that away from us with the people. And you say that, oh, you are giving money in trillions to governors. Even the federal government is also through you, is taking its own. And now we have been pushed to the edge. Because we don't have no access. Nigerians don't have access. It is easy to come on air and say, go and address your governors, go and talk to your governors. Where are you going to find them? Where?
Perhaps in their states.
The people in the House of Assembly the people in the House of Assembly who should speak for the people, they themselves have been kept in abeyance. The ones in the National Assembly here, if the Senate President says that whatever they bring, they will pass. What's left? So these are the challenges. So whatever, I still hold on to Atiku's campaign in 2023, where he said clearly, yes, subsidy should be removed, but it must be phased. And I recall him saying that Obasanjo started it, they started it. It went to Jonathan time, but thereafter it was abandoned.
All right, Mr.
You understand? So I believe that Nigerians need to come to a conclusion on their mind.
All right.
And the conclusion is very simple. This government, this APC, has not helped this country. That's a fact.
All right.
So sit down, take a decision. And I don't like to listen, sorry, Geoffrey, I don't like to listen to the argument of he was not in power, he got it, is it now that he's in power? No, you go out and perform your own responsibility first when the time comes. Go and do your own duty first when the time comes.
Well, as we build to the crescendo of campaigns, these are the questions we ask. And we hope that when we call for debates by candidates, everybody will come out. Because some of us who are journalists, we're not interested in what you guys go to campaign grounds to say. It's just hallelujahing. That's what we call it. Let's have proper debate, alternative ideas, and see who is better and who Nigerians will choose. But I must thank you, Mr. Kola Logbodi, a member of the ADC, formerly National Publicity Secretary of the PDP. I almost said defunct PDP, and I remember there's still PDP. With respect, there's still PDP.
Geoffrey, don't push me into what I don't know anything about.
Thank you for coming.
All right, so, well, let's get to have another very interesting conversation. This time it has to do with something that concerns us all, the environment. Let's cross over live now to Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital, where the Commissioner for Environment, Ogun State, Mr. Ola Oresanya, joins us live on the program. Mr. Oresanya, thank you indeed for standing by there to bring us up to speed with updates as regards the environment in Ogun State. The warnings from N8, again, it's really concerning. I'm not sure how disturbed you are, because for how many years now, I know you always go around this period, June, July, August, you always move around, go to the come to Sherry here, go to the Wawa area and some of the communities, Magboro, along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, those axes where flood is always a perennial thing. So how concerned are you this year? Or is it business as usual, Mr. Oresanya?
Thank you very much. I believe the N8 alert is an annual alert, and it's we get the early warning. The warning comes early enough and allows for preparation for the season. Let me correct you one way. For Ogun State, the kind of devastation with flood that we have, we have two seasons of flood in Ogun State. All right, the early flooding and the later flooding. And the early flooding is a flash flood. The later one is the river or coastal flooding that we have in Ogun State. And for us in Ogun State, the flash flood, it's any kind of devastation you may have there is man-made, because Ogun State is steepy. You have hills that can allow the easy passage of water when you have an intense rainfall within a very short time, because of the tropical area that we have. In July, for example, we have more than 400 mm of rainfall, which is intense, really, for tropical area. If it's a flat terrain like Lagos, you have a retention of that water for a long time before it can recede into the sea. And that is why you have that large retention of water, but within few hours, the water will either be absorbed by the soil or it will regress into the sea. For us in Ogun State, you don't have such retention in the early part of the year, talking about April, May, June, July. July is when you have the highest. And whenever we have such intense rainfall like the one we had recently, you always have a runoff. The only thing that can happen in Ogun State is that those runoff, if you impede the flow channel, the water can be aggressive and it can abrade. It can tear up soil, it can tear up building, and if you find yourself along the line, you can be washed off. So that's why we have a different terrain between Lagos and Ogun. Now, the period where we have our own concern in Ogun State is usually the latter flooding, which is the river flooding, the coastal flooding, and that is when you have the tidal lock around the month of September. You will see me coming towards the Sherry and the rest of the around September to see how things are moving on. Though we have made our preparation to curtail this, but this is a natural event. You have the tidal lock, you have a high tide during the month of end of September to first week in October or second week in October. That's the range of the time where we have a tide. That tide will impede the flow of Ogun River. And the water, because there is an impediment to flow, to empty itself into the lagoon, the water will spread laterally. And wetlands in Ogun, that's when you are threatened with this lateral flow. And that's why you see us coming to see what's going on. Though we will have done our preparation. For example, at the Sherry there, we have dredged the Okparo River. That's a river adjoining the Ogun River to allow reticulation. Because when you have a lockdown, the water must reticulate itself, must flow back. And there must be channel where it can take the excess while the tidal lock stays. So for us in Ogun State, we are prepared and we are more than prepared. And the challenge will be coming around September, ending to early month of October.
I like the fact that you alluded to the fact that some of those impediments are man-made. But the big question is, who do we hold responsible, Mr. Resoya?
Well, yes, man-made. That is why government is responsible. And,
Fantastic.
Government is responsible because our job really in government is to ensure that we define the structure that will guide how people function. All right, that's part of our social contract. We have to define the structure that will help people to function properly. So, and this we do. We make sure that one of the impediments is the waste. When you don't collect your waste properly, and the waste will clog the channels, and will affect that runoff. And that means government is responsible for waste management, and no other explanation for that. It's not about the habit of the people. There must be consequence for misbehavior. So if you have a bad habit, you get punished for it. That's just it. Okay. Then when you build along the channels, the river channels or the drainage channels, it's for government to break it off. I mean, move the house away. You know, you don't have approval for it, then the house must be removed. So there is no gainsaying about it. It's a reflection of government activity.
So, Honorable Commissioner, let's talk about what, for me, I think we may need to be futuristic, and I would like to ask whether that is in the plan. It may not be by this government, whether it's in a roadmap of a 50-year plan, a 20-year plan, whatever number of year plan for coastal communities in the area. So I'm using my understanding of Lagos, for instance, the Lekki area, which I'm sure you're very familiar with. Because there are cities that are on water, places like Netherlands, places like Venice, they found a way to live with nature. And people go to those places just because people have looked for creative ways to live with nature and it become a tourist attraction. Is that something that is in the conversation rather than this every year, back, forth, crisis zone? You understand what I'm saying, sir?
Oh, I understand you. I understand you. Well, the fact remains that I want to tell you that, like I used to discuss with my colleagues, you can build anywhere. You can build even on water. You can build on water channel. It doesn't stop anything. Look at what's happening at the Atlantic. It's right inside water. And you have structures there. On canals, you can build on canals. You just have to elevate yourself and allow passage. Big cities in the world. Go to the city of Mountains or Oxford Street. There are canals under those buildings that you see, all those giant buildings that you see there. There are canals right under them. So the only thing is that you elevate, you create space, all right? The Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam is on water. So it's all about obeying the order, obeying what you need to do the right thing. The city of Venice, okay, there's water all around. So people, you elevate and you manage your water very well. So I'm sure for the thing I'm discussing with my colleague in Lagos, and because I was even part of the program to Lagos early enough, the Atlantic city is one of the major hydraulic solutions to the problem that we always have in Uzumba, for example. If not for that dike, you know what Uzumba was already going to be in those days. And it was during Shoaib Bola Ahmed Tinubu tenure as a governor that he brought in this idea of creating that dike. Equal line is about 10 meters high, reclamation, and that has pushed the sea backwards and that has saved the land. So, and I think Lagos should be going in that alignment along that area. And for us also in Ogun State, yes, yes, our exposure to the Atlantic is not as much as Lagos. Lagos has almost more than 200-kilometer exposure. In Ogun State, we have a less than 50-kilometer exposure to the lagoon. And for us also, yes, we are building our jetty around the waterside area to make sure that our people in the waterside, they have the best of life, and also make sure that we use all the waterfront as tourist attraction.
Yeah, Honorable Commissioner, I know you've answered, but I don't know that you give me clarity in terms of answer. So there is no plan for such things. You said people can do what they like. I'm talking about statewide plan.
No, not that people can do what they like. I just gave you are talking about whether they are long-term. I'm telling you that the plan is here, and it has started already. It's not a long-term, plan again. Implementation have started. I gave you the example of the Lagos, the Equatlantic.
No, I was talking about Ogun State. I was talking about Ogun State specifically.
For us in Ogun State, yes. Our water side, yes. We already have the plan, and it's already embedded also in our local seaports. Okay, the seaport is expected to have is one of the deepest natural seaports you're going to have in the country, and the contract is almost being signed, and the agreement, you heard the governor talk about it recently. You already have investors who are going to move in any moment from now to start the construction, and the president of Nigeria has even given the approval for that. So our main advantage is to make sure that we use our own waterfront, even for transportation, and to aid even our economic, industrial growth and economic development in the state. So it's on. We're moving on.
Maybe two questions in one, Mr. Resoya. Two questions in one, really. The median on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, I'm not sure how proud you are and how proud your governor is about the state of that infrastructure. It's a mess, Mr. Resoya, a big mess. Question two, the relocation of the Caracas market. What's delaying that relocation? Because the salad just concluded again, I was at that market, and it's another mess, Mr. Resoya. And that's where it's one of the biggest cattle markets in West Africa. But we see these things in this part of the world. I mean, people have cattle in other parts of the world, but it's not as messy as what we have here at the Cara market. So what's causing that delay? Because I also know that the Ogun State government collects a lot of heavy taxes from that market.
Let me start by telling you that now the state government, I don't know, maybe the local government, I don't know, maybe from those who slaughter the ram, but I can assure you that we already have approval to relocate that market, to move that market. We're moving that market to Ogere. We have a new location. Well, the delay was to look at get the right investor, agree with the investor to make sure that what we have at Kara is not repeated at Ogere. We don't want to move problem from one location and transfer it to another location. No, that's not the idea. The idea is to solve it once and for all. It's on paper. We already agreed that that place must move. It's a mismatch, no doubt about it. And associated sanitation or public hygiene, the decay, you say, is because of that market. So that market must move. If I had my way, I would have moved the market like yesterday. But then you have to look at social angle. It is not just a one ministry a responsibility. It's an interministerial responsibility. We have a Ministry of Physical Planning, Ministry of Housing, several ministries are involved in that relocation. So I want to just plea with you that people should just give us time and that market will move. Okay, moving human being is not as easy as you say. And looking at even the legal angle of this issue. All right, that market there, nobody gave them approval, but they were there on challenge for more than 15 15, going to 20
and they
years
have done
now.
a lot of work, I
So
understand. Maybe just very quickly, in 20 seconds or less, the media on the Lagos about the expressway.
Well, it's a problem that we'll address on daily basis, but it's really, really tough. If you don't take the source of the problem away, you'll just be running in a circle. Telling people to clean up, we clean up the place regularly, but before you say jack, you have other human beings that import and they mess the place up. But we're not relenting. We're not relenting. We're not proud of it the way it is. I need to let you know that.
All right.
But just go on the lookout.
All right. We have to go now. We are absolutely pressed for time. Mr. Ola Oresoya, as the Commissioner for Environment, Ogun State, thank you indeed for your time and the work that you do. Please pay attention to our environment. It's really, really a big concern. But most thank you, most kindly.
Thank you very much.
Just before we go, let's cross over live to Port Harcourt, the River State capital, where our correspondent Deborah Mie Fiberesima is joining us live on the program. The Army, they are marking their 163rd anniversary. Deborah, what's the very, very latest? It's a big day. I understand the Vice President is already in town.
Yeah, Kelly, and it's really a beehive in Port Harcourt this morning. A lot of dignitaries are around. The Vice President came in yesterday, and we also have defense ministers from African countries around. Last night was a full house at their dinner night. It was really a well-attended event. Today we expect that the same quality of crowd will be here today. The 163rd anniversary of the military started around Sunday in Abuja, and on Thursday they crossed into Port Harcourt. On Friday they had commissioning of projects. On Saturday they had a lecture as well as a media chat with the COAS, and then on Sunday they had commissioning of civic military relationship projects, which was basically schools around the Rivers 3 senatorial districts, Rivers Southeast, Rivers East, and Rivers West. Quite a lot of activities earmarked for this. And today is the climax, and we expect that it's going to have the same energy that's had all through the week.
Well, we have to leave it here. I was going to ask you perhaps why the choice of Port Harcourt, but it's fine. My message to the Chief of Army Staff and the PRO, because I understand you're going to speak with him any moments from now, please remind him that we have pupils in Oyo State who have been in captivity for about 56 days now. I'm not sure how they are able to have dinner and have this elaborate kind of anniversary. But we must thank you, Deborah. We have our eyes and ears on ground in you there. We'll come touch base with you subsequently as the news unfolds later today.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much.
All right, our correspondent Deborah Mie Fiberesima. We have to anchor the program this morning, Jeff.
Totally out of time. Thank you for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Zama. Bye-bye.
Kenny Giga signing out. Sunrise Daily is next. Good morning.